My name is Melanie Boyle and I'm an SEN teacher, an AAC coach and a special needs parent. I'm actively involved in AAC research, both here in Ireland and in the UK. Like you, I'm always looking to improve my practice, and recently I completed a PGCE in AAC and assistive technology with the University of Dundee. This has really expanded my knowledge and enhanced the services that I deliver. I'm trained in using a number of AAC systems, and I've collaborated with and worked with two of the biggest AAC development companies, which some of you may know, namely Assistiveware and Tobii Dynavox. So if you're familiar with Proloco2Go, it's a tongue twister, or TD Snap, they're the companies I've worked with before. In January, along with another Scottish AAC geek, I featured on the Talking with Tech podcast, which was a lot of fun, and you can find that on wherever you stream your podcasts from. Now, by coaching parents and teachers and key professionals, I'm able to alleviate demands on speech and language therapists, for which there's a global shortage and huge waiting lists. As you can see here in the picture, my daughter uses AAC. She has a rare chromosomal disorder called Angelman syndrome. She is inspiration behind Communication Angel, and at the age of 17 months, we were given her diagnosis. We were told it was unlikely that she would ever speak. As difficult as that was to hear, we still believe that she had plenty that she wanted to communicate to us. I often describe her as a beautiful communicator because she uses all the ways possible to connect with those around her. Even those that have no interest in interacting with her at all, she will always try every way possible to get a smile out of them. We began the search for a different way to speak, and through Angelman UK, we found a way that was possible, and that was through AAC. In the early years, these are the three of the most important women in our daughter's life. Like you, as early years practitioners, they supported our family through the most vulnerable times. As a parent, they supported me through the grief of the life we planned and was now altered. It was altered in a way that we had to learn how to navigate it without a map or instructions. In those early days of diagnosis, they were there with us as we navigated the healthcare system, emergency hospital visits, recovering from hospital stays, all the highs and lows of therapy, milestones changing to tiny steps, and glimmers of progress that our girl achieved. They cared deeply about our daughter, and each of them had a unique bond with her. They tuned in. They planned for her inclusion in their setting. They were open to all the advice and guidance from us and therapists, AIMS advisors, and anyone else that had suggestions for us that would help her. They used their unique skills, their knowledge of her, and the resources available to ensure that she thrived in the environment. This led to her inclusion with peers and building genuine relationships with other children who also helped her progress and valued her communication. Each of these special women worked with her for only a short period of time, but regardless of this, the connection that they have is so strong that even now we remain connected, and there may be one or two of them on today, sharing and celebrating each glimmer of her success and progress. If this resonates with an experience you've had with a child or a family through your service, would you just pop a little heart emoji in the chat or use the reactions on the top right of Teams to show if you've had a similar experience? Lots of hearts popping up there. So this isn't new to you. You've gone through this with other families before. You have the ability now to shift mindsets and any preconceived notions about disability. In the early years, you set the baseline for ideal inclusive practices. These are practices that families and students will be able to take to their future schools and hold them accountable for upholding an inclusive and accessible educational experience. And this is quite a tall order. However, I know that you have incredible support through the LINC programme, and together with your tutors and the professional network that you're part of now, you share a common mindset with the aim of being inclusive, allowing all babies, toddlers and young children to thrive. Now it's time for you guys to get involved with the Menti. Let's test this out. How would you define communication? There's some new answers in. What's your definition of communication? Creative ways, music, art, connection. Connection is so important. Eye contact, smiles, that's what it looks like. Interacting verbally and non-verbally, smiles, cuddles, ways of receiving information, yeah. How we correspond with others, listening, engaging with others, sending and receiving a message, yes. Sharing feelings, thoughts and ideas. Gestures, body language, lovely. These are forms of AAC. Verbal, non-verbal, facial expressions, lovely. Unique, I love that. Communication is unique. Voice being valued. I love that one too. Great responses here, lovely. Body language, mannerisms, physical touch, yes. Physical touch and eye contact. Hand holding. Understanding one another. Observing and responding. Smiles, listening, kindness. Body language. Yes, lovely. Thank you so much for your answers. So communication isn't just about asking questions or asking for things. As I can see that you're aware, we use it for many reasons, and each function helps build meaningful relationships, independence and confidence. This illustration shows a variety of different communication functions that we use. We can go from requests to sharing opinions, asking for help, sharing information, negotiating, to giving someone a compliment. And something my girl loves to do is to flirt. They're all different forms, reasons that we communicate, and we have to tune into children to understand that. This may be familiar to some of you. Here on the right is the Ashtar. I've said that right, hopefully, Claire. About being agentic. The Communication Bill of Rights on the left was developed to ensure basic rights of persons with disabilities to have agency over how they live and what they do. I'm not going to read all these points out, but I think you'll be able to just gaze your eyes across some of the points there and see the similarities between both. So each child, regardless of ability, has the right to express themselves, be heard, and have access to communication that works for them. When we recognise these rights, we shift from focusing on can they talk to how do they communicate. We are communication partners for children in our care, and it's critical that in practice we uphold these rights. We empower children to have active participation in their own world. As you can see in the Ashtar, it highlights really similar points as the Communication Bill of Rights. And according to the Ashtar document, being agentic is when a baby, toddler or young child is empowered and makes choices and decisions for themselves. Being agentic means that they have voice and influence over their own learning. It goes on to say that some babies and toddlers and young children may need extra support or resources to ensure equality and opportunity and empower them to participate and be fully included. Their voice can be represented in many ways, and some of those are recognised as AAC. AAC actually stands for Alternative and Augmentative Communication. So augmentative communication is when we supplement speech, which we do really naturally through using gestures, sign language, facial expressions, and even changing our tone. Alternative communication is how we replace speech. So we do this in some ways through written language, sending text messages, using symbols and signage, and in cases with the help of technology, speech generating devices like the one shown here. Speaking of inclusion, how are you currently supporting children who have unclear, unreliable speech, or those who are non-speaking? Anyone who cannot meet their daily needs with spoken language alone would likely benefit from a form of AAC. And their speech may be understood at times or with familiar people, but beyond that, their spoken language is not reliable across situations. So what are you doing now to support them within your setting? What tools and strategies? We're jumping back to Menti again. Visuals, visual boards, flashcards, love. Yeah, clear picture labels, songboard for circle time. Oh, that sounds nice. Yeah, first and then, showing them items representing what we are doing or about to do. So in showing items, do you mean the actual object, the physical object, or maybe a photograph of an object? But yeah, we call them objects of reference if you're using the actual object to signal what's coming up. Communication boards, choice boards, first and then boards. Lovely. So these all fit into different categories. So if we look at some of these different forms of AAC that you've mentioned here, some of them are person-based. So it's how we communicate with our bodies through facial expressions and gesture, including love. Then we've got partner-based. So that's how we as a communication partner interpret their communication intent. We might support them by giving them options, choices, follow their non-verbal cues, and read their use of the paper-based supports as well that were mentioned there. Some of the paper-based supports might be individual symbols on their own, communication boards, or a collection of pages so that come together as a communication book. Sometimes it might not just be a symbol, it might be a symbol with a word. Maybe the child just needs the word or phrase. And then you've got your power-based, which would include the device that I showed you earlier, or voice output switches. These are quite nice to have in the early years environment. They can be quite motivated by the voice output. So anything that needs a battery to function would come under power-based AAC. Or you can call them no tech, low tech, and high tech. We're sort of moving away from saying low tech because it makes it sound like it's less value. So we might say light tech instead of low tech. Most of you will be aware of the power of visuals and how they support learners to understand as we communicate with them. But like a dragonfly, speech is fleeting and variable. Once it's out in the open, it's gone. Whereas visible forms of language are easier to learn, like symbols. They're less fleeting and they're less variable. They're more concrete that we can hold on to and process and take that time. So using visuals for multiple purposes across the day is really beneficial. Give me a thumbs up or a reaction if you think the toddlers and young children in your setting would recognise at least 4 of these symbols. Yeah, lots of thumbs popping up. So this is because they see them often. They connect the symbols to the experience it brings. They have an emotional attachment to that experience and anticipate what is to come. They use clues such as colour and shape to scan and locate these symbols in their environment. I know we live close to Letterkenny, so when we drive to Letterkenny, there's a McDonald's just as we arrive, and you sort of scan what you can see on the road until you see the golden arches. Even without really planning to go there, you're still looking for it because that symbol holds such a sort of emotional connection. This is how we give meaning to abstract symbols. So I know we mentioned there objects of reference, symbols, pictures, but using more abstract symbols, we can still teach them. Maybe in the early years you find that children aren't ready for them, but if we teach them and use them consistently during motivating activities in natural context, we create those true connections and not in isolation as part of a test. AAC goes beyond helping someone understand what is happening around them. It's about giving them the power to express themselves. So some visual supports focus only on receptive language like schedules, first and then boards, and behaviour charts. These help a person understand routines and expectations of them, but they don't allow them to express their own thoughts. That's where expressive AAC comes in. If we use visuals for receptive support only, we might be limiting a person's ability to then communicate expressively. Instead, we need to provide tools that help them share their wants, needs, and ideas, whether through core words or communication devices or a robust communication book. Linking back to the communication functions we looked at earlier, educators and speech and language therapists are now moving away from PECs. I did see somebody mention PECs in the chat there. We're moving away from PECs. Not only is it limiting in terms of communication function, but its implementation is compliance-based. And it's not in line with the Astor description of agency. And going back to how you all interpret communication, what you think communication is, it's about connection. It's not about compliance. Power-based AAC is certainly not a quick fix, and before a child is given one of these, it's a lengthy assessment process and procurement process. Then finally, when they get their device, the child, along with everyone around them, needs to learn how to use it. To help visualise what this might look like, we've got a quick little video here. Could you hear that, Claire? Could you hear the video?
All good.
Start? Yeah, okay, perfect. Right, I'll play a little video now. Josie learned to use her AAC system by observing others using it in natural contexts. Only when she had enough exposure and practice across different activities, different contexts, and seeing it used by different people, was she confident enough to begin using it herself? And this is why providing some form of AAC in the early years can be so beneficial. So a great place to start is by using communication boards, and the benefits of using them in the early years go beyond supporting those with communication difficulties. They give children access to more ways to communicate, which can lead to less frustration and possible challenging behaviour. By sharing the same AAC tool within the setting, all children have a consistent model of communication to interact with each other. If AAC symbolised language is the norm, this can lead to less stigmatisation around the use of AAC and assistive technology tools when they do arrive after the lengthy assessment process. For children waiting for the procurement of an individual AAC system or device, they have access to communication support in the interim, and they can begin to learn how to use symbols to communicate. For children whose first language is not English, these can support the understanding of the use of English, both receptively and expressively. For children learning to read, these create an extra opportunity to practice reading skills. And for you as a practitioner, daily practice with the same tool will support you and staff to be confident in using AAC across environments. So more confidence means more use. It's also free. All the resources I'll share with you this evening are free to download. They're inexpensive to print and create. All you need is paper, printer, ink, laminating sheets, and you're good to go. You don't have to spend hours creating them. They're all ready to just be printed unless you want to personalise them. And you and other staff don't need extensive training on how to get started with them. They're durable and really easy to replace if they get ruined, say at the water table, or they get ripped or from extra use. But I think that's always a good sign if anything ever needs replaced in terms of AAC support. So one of the main things I wanted to share with you tonight was Project Core, and I know people that were on a previous webinar with me will have dipped their toe into this as well. So I'm not going to open it up just now. I was going to, but I think I'll just carry on. But with Project Core, I'll give the links at the end through a shared document. Project Core provides the resources and 8 training modules, and all of this is free. And the main aim for Project Core is to get people confident in using AAC and to start now rather than waiting for devices to arrive. And it's a bit like a universal design for learning. So like inclusion, giving opportunities to everyone so that everyone has equal opportunities to participate. So you will have the link to this at the end, and you can go and explore the website. There's loads on there. There's help to decide which communication boards to start with, and each of the modules that you can study there, you'll get a certificate for completion as well, which can be part of your whole setting, strategy for AAC. So this is an example of one of their communication boards. And as you can see, there's 36 symbols there, and these are all core words. So core words make up about 80% of the language that we use day to day. And all the conversations we have, these are the 36 most common words that we use. And each symbol is partnered with the label for it too. So if we take go, for example, if we're going to teach the word go, we can use it in lots of different ways. We can say go here, go there, go home, go away, don't go up, go down, you can go. There's lots of ways we can use that one word. Whereas if we had on this communication board volcano, there's not as many ways that we could use that word. So that'd be known as fringe vocabulary. But go is used all the time. Think about how many times throughout your day you're saying go to the children. Let's go wash your hands, go to the toilet, go and get your shoes. We're using them constantly. So we're going to work together and create a resource that we can then use going forward. What I love to do with practitioners is to create cheat sheets. So it's little mini plans of what phrases you can use in your setting at a particular time of the day. And it won't just benefit you, but once you've got it made and printed, you can share it with your other colleagues as well within the setting. So we're going to create a phrase bank for what we would say during snack time. So I might have to split my screen. You can put your answers in the next Menti question. So if you were sitting down having snack time with the children, what phrases can you create using these words? Now, you don't have to use every word to create a full sentence. You could just focus on keywords. So if I looked at the word different, I could ask, oh, your lunch is different, for example. And all I'm going to model and point to on that page is different. Oh, your lunch is different. Or you've got more apple today, same as yesterday. So thinking of short phrases that we would use, including at least one of these words to model. So I can see people are starting to put in the chat now. Yeah, I think you've created a great bank of phrases there just for that one activity. Thank you so much for all your contributions there. That was brilliant. So core words are brilliant. They're a great starting point. They're very powerful, but they have limitations. So they don't easily allow for finer detail, like someone added juicy within the answers there. So that would be a fringe word. And this is where we get the missing details. We want to give all the information, but using a core communication board, you're limited to using the core words. So that's when it can be a good idea to have an activity-based communication board, which I'll show you now. So you can see here the comparison. We've still got, in the activity-based communication board, you've still got some core words, want, stop, more, off, on, but you've got some topic-specific words too. And I especially like this activity board because during a recent nursery visit, a group of children from another room came in to ask something, and they were all dressed as superheroes. And I grabbed this communication board, and straight away they were all engaged in conversation with me. They were putting their masks on and taking them off, and then one other child didn't have a mask, so another child gave her. It was just magical. It was it was unplanned. It was just in the moment. There was that connection with myself and like 4 little kiddies dressed as Batman and Spider-Man, and it was just lovely. You honestly couldn't have planned it any better. It just happened. But because if I didn't have the communication board there, we maybe would have had a little short interaction, but it was just so much more meaningful because they were so engaged by the visuals that were supporting that communication. And because I was modeling, oh, put it on, take it off, if you saw these symbols in isolation, it's very hard to understand what they mean. But with the words alongside and with me modeling in the natural context, it made sense to them and they used it. Now, for some of these children, they were using the symbol to understand what it meant. But in time, they'll begin reading those words and beginning to develop their literacy skills through the support of those communication boards. So again, it's inclusive of everybody and supporting different areas of development. When choosing your communication board, you might want to think about what symbol set to use. There's so many available. Maybe you have a subscription to a particular type of symbol like BoardMaker. A lot of schools and settings have a subscription to that. It's quite popular in Ireland, whereas in other areas, widget symbols would be more popular. These are all available on Project Core, which I'm sharing with you later. You might also want to think, if someone's already got an AAC system in their classroom, in their setting, what symbols are used within that communication system? Could you match it to their symbols? And the other thing is, if they do have their own AAC system, then you can actually find resources that are directly linked to those communication systems. You can see this one here. This is TD Snap. And this communication board matches what's on the screen. So all that motor planning, the knowledge of what colour background the words have, it's all connected there because you're using the same. And again, there'll be links to this at the end. So the Asher document describes the slow, rational pedagogy, and I really loved reading this because it was so in tune with the way that we support communication. It's about slowing down and taking the time to be present in the moment with the baby, toddler, or young child. And this is like through nurturing, responding, reflecting, affirming efforts, and celebrating success. In reality, we come down to their level. We observe what motivates them, and we use these moments to model AAC. This nurtures and builds trusting relationships with them. We build a connection by responding to their communication style. We comment and invite responses through open-ended questions. We tune in and reflect on what you see and understand from the baby, toddler, or young child. Just like those responses, the phrases that you used in the cheat sheet, that's us tuning in. We're responding to what their needs are, what they're communicating to us, and then showing them how they could communicate it in a different way using AAC. We affirm their efforts and attribute meaning to their communication in whatever way they choose. And we celebrate the moments of connection rather than putting so much focus on doing things that you as an adult have planned. You're following their lead and enjoying the moment when it comes. At the end of the day, it's about their communication. And we're not mind readers. We can never really know exactly what a child might want to say. However, by following these steps, we can support them to the end goal, which is autonomous communication, being able to say what you want to say to whomever you want to say it in whatever way you want to say it. Now, before we finish off, I've done really well for time, I'm delighted. Before we finish off, just want you to take about 10 seconds to reflect on that whirlwind tour of AAC and communication boards. And I want you to think of what one word springs to mind. How are you feeling now about using AAC in your setting and implementing it with communication boards? Pop a word that jumps into your mind now into the chat, and let's see how you're feeling now about dipping your toe in. Confident, empowered, optimistic, capable. Oh, I love that. More confident, brilliant, inspired, informed. That's fantastic. Thank you so, so much for those responses. Enriched. Wow. Love it. So as we've come to the end, jump past this. I just want to thank Claire and Helena for inviting me to deliver this workshop for you all. It's been a great opportunity to rediscover that time in my daughter's life as well, of how she was supported in the early years and what skills her practitioners had to really make sure she was included and supported, I suppose, and thrive within her setting. I will be sharing, Helena has the links to a Wakelet that I'll be sharing, and on there is all the resources I've spoken about today. It looks a bit like social media. It's all kind of visual, where you can have a look at the communication boards and training. If you do have a moment, I would love it if you would share your experience with AAC by scanning this QR code. And before we take any questions, if there are any questions, you can pop them in the chat. Maybe Claire will keep track of those. Just to let you know the services that I do offer. I do coaching in schools, one-to-one consultations with parents or teachers, training workshops, a bit like this. I have a 6-week AAC club for parents and carers who have an AAC system in place. And I also provide communication assessments, as I know there's such a huge waiting list for children to see speech and language therapy.